Good morning, and thanks so much for joining us here on Aspire to Retire with Ralph and Tim Short, the father-son team behind Welcome Home Financial Partners. You can find out more about them online, welcomehomefp.com. The phone number, if you have questions about things we talk about this week on the show or just questions about your retirement in general, you want that second opinion, we're going to talk about that in a minute here, or your first opinion if you need to. The number is 804-635-3550. That is 804-635-3550. My name is Chris Swan, and I'm pleased to be joined with one less today, but I'm pleased to be joined with the patriarch of Welcome Home Financial Partners. Ralph, glad to be with you. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine. I've never been called a patriarch before. Does that mean I'm over the hill? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
No, it means you are the cornerstone of what, there would not be Welcome Home Financial Partners without you. Sure, Tim is an integral part of it and the entire team. People can find out more about them at welcomehomefp.com, but wouldn't be here, wouldn't have the show without you. So appreciate you taking time out of your schedule. And we're going to start using that more often. I think that's a good title. It is not anything. There's no ill content behind it, ill will, but no.
Trust me, I've been called worse, Chris.
I think we all have, honestly, but because this is a radio show and friendly, we're going to keep it clean. We were going to keep it clean anyway, but I really do appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to spend with the listeners here as they get ready to embark on this next great chapter known as retirement. We've spoken many times here on the show, Ralph, about people needing a second opinion, people who come into the office to speak with you guys for a second opinion because they're not happy with their current advisor, usually either due to lack of results or poor service, lack thereof being hard to track down. For some, seeking another advisor's advice is a challenging step to take, for various reasons. Can you give us some red flags that people might encounter that might show that it's time to switch to somebody new, especially during, volatile market times like we've seen earlier this year?
I think number one, for most people, they would need to make sure that they're getting communication from their advisor somehow, some shape, some form. We just had a prospect that came in in fact, yesterday, that she came in because she was referred by one of our clients because she was not happy with the results, not so much the results, but the lack of communication from her advisor. And what I mean by that is she's been with her for about 3 years and really never talked to her. And number one, at the same time, when she does set up an appointment through her secretary or whatever, and she shows up for the meeting, the advisor never shows up to talk to her. Oh. And she says that's been a couple of times like that. And I'm just kind of thinking, well, then why are you even keeping her if she won't even have a meeting with you? Yeah. But those are things that are happening, and a lot of people just need to understand that change is difficult, no matter what it is, whether it's changing your diet because the doctor says that you need to change your diet, or whether you have to sit there and think about changing a route because all of a sudden there's a wreck in front of you and you don't know what you need to do. But the worst thing about it is having to change an advisor or somebody who you're talking to about money, because money is a very personal item, and it's very difficult to get comfortable with somebody, and then all of a sudden, that person may not be there, maybe not by choice, but because something happened, or better yet, a lot of these bigger box stores, bigger firms, those advisors may not be there more than a few weeks, let alone a few years. Right. So you may have to find somebody else, and you have to get comfortable with them at that point in time. But it's just one of those things, lack of communication, not understanding what you're trying to do. The other thing that I would say to a lot of people is, when do you have a meeting with them? What do you talk about? Do you just talk about your investment portfolio? Do they rebalance and that's all they talk about? Or do they just say, hey, this is where we are. We don't need to talk anymore. Kind of get out the door so I can get to the next person. It's kind of like, I remember when probably 25 or 30 years ago, I had a doctor I really enjoyed, really liked, because he sat down and took the time to talk to you about certain things that were going on. But then he got bought out by a bigger firm, and then he was on a timetable where he only had 10 minutes at every visit with you, and he didn't have a lot of time to talk to you at that point in time. So what I'm going to say to everybody is it takes a lot of fortitude to make a change. But is it better for you to make that change and be uncomfortable for a better change? I would say yes. And, the other thing a lot of people really don't understand, and your advisor should kind of talk to you if you're into stocks and stuff, maybe start talking about some tax harvesting where you can improve your portfolio. And sure, most people don't have an understanding of what we're talking about, but the advisor should be advising you on certain things like that. I would also say to a lot of people, I had a gentleman over the weekend that came in. We were talking as a first time we met, and he was saying, listen, the things that we're taught in our job, because he was military, okay? He's fixing to retire. He was DOD. And he was saying, we're taught how to do our job, what's expected of us, how to do this, how to do that. This is our procedures, and you have to follow them. But he says, the problem we're having now is that nobody teaches us how to retire. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason that I'm here, is because I've listened to your shows several times, and you're the only one that has come up with, for me to understand what it takes to retire. Am I able to retire? And we do that through our roadmap process. But he came in after watching our television programs for about a year, and he just said, it's time to think. I've spent 23 years as a Green Beret, and now I've been about 15 years as a civilian DOD. And he said, I think it's about time for me to think about stepping aside and start enjoying myself. And I said, well, you know what? I agree with you. I mean, thank you for your service. Mm-hmm. You've done a lot for us, and we appreciate it. But now it's time to think about what's in the best interest for you so you can enjoy life, because we just don't know how much life we have left. Right. And he said, well, my body's been through a lot. Let's put it that way. I'm not as old as, maybe you are, but I have seen a lot on my body, and some of the things I've had to do, it's taken its toll. So that's kind of why I'm here. I just don't know what to do, how to retire. Can I retire? What's it going to look like? Those are all questions that we help answer through our roadmap process. And the thing that I would say to everybody out there is, why not take a chance and call in and say, hey, I need a little bit of help here. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, nobody's taught me how to retire. Nobody's even thought about that. They just said, hey, here's the papers, sign them, you're out the door, whatever. But sometimes you make those decisions without the knowledge that you need, and they're irreversible. So all of a sudden, you've signed off on something, if you have lucky enough to get a pension, that you can't make any changes once you make that determination. So don't you think it would be wise for you, if you're going to receive money for the rest of your life, to know it's the amount of money that you actually, the most that you can get because you made the right decision? Because, Chris, let me ask you a question. How many times has anybody ever come up to you and said, hey, here is a map for you to retire 20 years from now. This is what you need to do. Has anybody ever sat down and talked with you about that?
For me, never, no.
Yeah. And I have a lot of clients that would come in and say, why don't they teach this kind of stuff either in high school or college or whatever? It's a life skill that nobody knows anything about, because, hey, guess what? It is kind of difficult to talk about, because guess what? We're always, and we're in our 20s and 30s, guess what, boys? We are like I tell people, you're 10 foot tall and bulletproof.
Right.
Age 65 in retirement, man, I don't even have to worry about that. That's a long, long time ahead. So why should I worry about it today? Well, guess what? Those 30 to 40 years pop up a whole lot quicker than you anticipate. So why not have a plan set in place, but with an educated plan, something that you kind of understand. You don't have to know all the nuances. You don't have to understand all the lingo, but you have to understand why it's important for you to have that knowledge and make the right decisions. Because guess what? your retirement is going to be based on your decisions, how well it is, what your lifestyle is. You know, you can blame somebody else, but if you've got the knowledge to do it yourself, then you can only blame yourself for not having that retirement that you want.
And that's where that retirement roadmap that you guys do, the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners builds for clients. I think that the description of it being a roadmap is so great because everyone starts at a different location and their goal is going to be different. It's going to look different, but everybody wants to get to that retirement at the end of the day. And so finding ways to navigate through, you know, what they've got and what the road looks like on the way. And there will be challenges along the way, like you mentioned. You know, there will be, market volatility, tax changes, health situations, also positive things, birth of a grandchild or, you know, new hobbies that you want to develop. And so how do you navigate through and around that? And it's probably not something that you thought about when you first set out in the working world. I know myself, and I can probably speak on behalf of a lot of the listeners out there, you know, when you first were eligible for your very first 401k, you probably didn't know what you were signing up for necessarily, and you probably didn't have a lot of guidance on it, so you just kind of picked. Is it the best thing? No, not necessarily, but you had a lot of time on your side to do it. As you get closer and closer to retirement, well, time is not a commodity that you have in abundance of, and so you want to take more control. You want to make sure you're making those right decisions, and those big brokerage houses, as I'm sure people are aware, they're not there to give you advice on how to take money out of their companies, their firms. They're just there to help you accumulate and grow, and that is important, of course. But when it comes to retirement, that is where you need that hands-on approach. That is where you need that delicate hand. That is where the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners comes into play. Here's how you reach out really quick. WelcomeHomeFP.com is the website. Find out more about Ralph, Tim, the entire team. Set up a time to speak with them. Have that complimentary second opinion. You'd also give a call, 804-635-3550. I understand it can be a challenge to make those changes. It can be difficult. It can be daunting. Ralph, as you mentioned, that Green Beret gentleman you spoke with, it reminds me very similarly of my father. He also did 23 years in the armed forces, did more as a civilian contractor later on. And I remember specifically, he had a guy on base that cut his hair. His name was Ace. And he cut his hair for many years. And even after my dad retired and was no longer working on that base, he would go over there to go see Ace. Here's the thing. For a good while there, my dad, he had more hair than Tim, but he didn't have a whole lot, right? And so it just got to a point where I was like, we had, my mom and my brother and I, we had to sit down and go, this is not what you need anymore. Like I understand the loyalty and the friendship, and if it's for the communication and the social thing, I understand that. But as far as what you need, this is not what you need anymore. And it's the same sort of thing as you get closer and closer to retirement. Sure, you may have had someone on your side who has been there with you, and there is that loyalty, but is it what you need in retirement? Could be, but it's also, I think, worth seeking a second opinion. And again, that is where the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners comes into play. 804-635-3550 is the phone number. The website, welcomehomefp.com. So here's a fun question for the listeners out there. What kind of driver are you? There was a recent AAA study that found that there are 6 drivers, and most of them are unsafe. There are safe drivers, which is about 40%. So that is, not the majority, but it is a decent portion. There are speeding drivers, about a quarter of them. Distracted drivers, distracted and aggressive drivers, the most dangerous drivers, that's about 2%. And then impaired drivers, those that are under the influence of things, obviously not great at all. That's about 1%. Ralph, would you also say there are different personality types when it comes to savers for retirement in the same way that there are drivers? After meeting with you guys, do some of those personalities, do they change? Do they shift?
There's always going to be different types of retirement savers or philosophies or whatever you want to call it, because everybody's a little different. Some people will take responsibility for their own actions. Some people will say, I can't retire because I didn't do a good job, but it's not my fault because nobody's talked to me to do it. But, that's kind of what we call deniers. It's just saying that there's no sense in thinking about retirement because, they don't know what they're going to need. They don't know what their expenses are going to be, and it takes too much time and effort. And I would say that, to me, is just really asinine to even think that way.
Sure.
Because, it does take some time. That's the thing that a lot of people, and we tell them all the time with our roadmap. I said, when you come in for our first meeting, we're going to ask some questions and we're going to send you out a little packet of information before you come in. And it's going to take some work on your part because we don't know what kind of expenses that you've got. So we have to understand that first so we can do our roadmap process, which is basically a cash flow analysis of your retirement income and expenses. And are you good enough to continue to think about retirement, or do you have to wait a while? But it takes some time. It takes some effort. So be aware of that. I mean, if you think that retirement is just, hey, happy-go-lucky, it's going to happen, that's probably not the best way to think about it. And then there's those people that's always got an excuse. Those are the ones we call the strugglers because something's going to happen. There's going to be some type of obstacles that gets in the way. Medical issue. Maybe a child gets hurt and, you have to take off of work for 4 or 5 months and help them out or whatever, or even your parents, because a lot of the sandwich generation these days had to stop work to help take care of their parents because their parents didn't do a very good job of, long-term care planning, things like that. So those are some things that happens, but guess what? Everybody's going to have issues. It's how you respond to those issues will determine how well you do in retirement because you've got to take responsibility for your retirement. Then there are those people that, hey, let's not worry about planning. Let's not worry about saving too much. But guess what? I want to do this. I want to do that. And we're going to do it regardless. As the old saying goes, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. Well, guess what? You do have to think about not spending another $100,000 on that sports car right before you think about retiring, because there are people that will do that. Trust me, I've seen it. A lot of our clients will come in and they've made some good money and they start thinking about that, but it does feel good for a while, but it might affect you a lot longer down the road. If you took $100,000 out of your retirement account to buy that sports car for you, how's that going to affect you down the road? Then there's those people that will just say, we're going to start thinking about retirement. We're going to calculate how much we're going to need. But the problem with those guys are they're going to be savers, but they're not willing to take any chances. They're the ones that, like I tell people, when we do our roadmap process, we go through a risk tolerance questionnaire. And at the very end, I said, all right, on a scale of 1 to 100, with 1 being you're going to take your money and bury it in a mason jar in the backyard, or 100, you're going to take your money and go to Vegas and have a good time, what number would you be? And people laugh and say, well, I don't know how to answer that question. I said, well, it's all about you. Would you take 100,000 and go to Vegas and just blow it and have a good time, or are you going to bury it in the backyard? That's the difference between a very aggressive saver, or investor, and one that just says, hey, I want to make sure it's there. I don't care if it grows or not, which makes no sense to me. But that's what they call cautious savers, And then there's those planners, those ones that know that they have to have a plan for a comfortable retirement, and they know they need to save. They're willing to take some risks. I mean, that's going to be probably 25% of the population that we talk to.
Okay.
Unless you're an engineer. If engineers, they've got those spreadsheets coming at the wazoo when they come in. But when they do come in, we give them a different perspective on what we do for them. But yes, you can have all your expenses and stuff in there, but down the road, how's it going to look? And then those people that are probably around 20% of the people, they've done a good job at retiring. They know that they've been saving for a very, very long time. And they know that they needed some help and they got some help along the way. And they took responsibility for their retirement, because guess what? Your retirement and your lifestyle, it depends on what you've done over the years. It doesn't happen overnight, and that's where a lot of people need to understand. Retirement is a process, and we can show you how to retire, what it's going to look like, but it's still a process. If you've got a job with a pension and you're thinking about retiring, guess what? You just don't wake up today and say, I'm retiring today, and you walk out the door tomorrow. It takes a while to go through their process to get through there. And that's where we help people a lot, because guess what? Like we talked a little bit earlier, nobody's ever taught you how to retire.
Mm-hmm.
We've been through thousands of retirement plans for people and saying, this is what you need to do. This is how it needs to do. Because guess what? Where you have your retirement accounts, probably they don't want you to leave there. It's in their best interest to maintain that. So guess what they're going to say to you? Oh, we can take care of that for you. Leave it where it is. You don't have to worry about this. Don't have to worry about that. But are you going to meet with those people when you have a question, when you have a problem? Because guess what? Some people will need extra cash somewhere along the way because something happened. They want to take let's say a 50th anniversary trip, and they need $20,000 for that trip.
Mm-hmm.
Where's it going to come from? Probably their retirement accounts. So guess what? Now you got to figure out how to get that. So that's where we kind of help people along the way to do the things that they want to do, get the money that they need, whether it's for that golden anniversary trip or whether it's college education funding, whatever it is. Financially, that's where we help people understand what their retirement is going to look like.
And it is going to look different for everybody out there. There are people out there that are listening right now, I'm sure, a little bit of self-awareness on their part where they go, you know what, I do fall in that denier category, or I do fall in that impulsive category. It's about knowing yourself, being a little self-aware. You're also, honestly, by listening, just by joining us this week, you're in that planning process. You know, you are showing that you are taking your retirement seriously, or that you're paying more attention to it. You realize that at some point you're going to have to, those that deny it is very much a sticking your head in the sand sort of situation. And I never understood that, that's ostriches that do that. That's what they say. But here's the thing.
Right.
If they're sticking their head in the sand to avoid danger, their entire body is still exposed. That danger is still going to come. Whether or not you plan for your retirement, it's still going to come. Whether it is something that your employer decides for you, or it is something that your health decides for you, or it is something you just wake up one day and you realize, I don't want to do this anymore. And so the fact that it is going to happen for all of us, we are all going to be faced with retirement in some capacity, is all the more reason to have that planning process. And yes, you may have kicked that can down the road for a number of years, but there's no time like the present, honestly, to begin that process, to begin that conversation. It starts with a second opinion. It starts with a team, if I can recommend and editorialize here, a fiduciary team acting in your best interest, like Ralph Short, like Tim Short, like the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners. You take that first step by reaching out to 804-635-3550. I want to go back to the question we were talking about before this, Ralph. There is a degree of trust that goes into place, because when we talk about these roadmaps that you guys build, getting them to, through, and beyond retirement, a retirement ideally is going to be 15, 20 years. And so that is a long time to have someone by your side. So it does involve a degree of trust, because that is very much a relationship that you are going to build. Like my dad built with his barber that cut his hair for X number of years. Like you probably don't have at the big brokerage houses, because as you mentioned, every time you call up, you're going to have a different person out there. Sure, they've got your numbers and the file and the spreadsheet there, but that's what you are there. You're a number in the spreadsheet. That's not what you are at Welcome Home Financial Partners. They get to know you. They build these relationships. They maintain these relationships. And, as these things happen, Ralph, as you mentioned, you want to take $20,000 out for that 50th anniversary celebration. That is certainly something to celebrate. Yes, let's figure out how to do that, but also where to do it tactically, not to make sure that, it doesn't affect your Medicare premiums down the line, or it doesn't become a bigger burden because you withdrew it from this account and now the tax ramifications, that's now a $25,000, $26,000 withdrawal. Having someone on your side like Ralph Short, like Tim Short, like the entire team at Welcome Home Financial Partners that you can know and trust and develop that relationship with, I think is paramount in retirement. But it all begins with taking that next step, reaching out and setting up a time to speak with them. 804-635-3550. Once again, 804-635-3550. Or you can always find out more about them online, welcomehomefp.com. The podcast is up there, previous editions of Aspire to Retire. There for you to check out at your leisure on the website, welcomehomefp.com. Also, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you consume your digital media. But we encourage you to check those out at your leisure. And we want to thank you so much for joining us here on this edition of Aspire to Retire with Ralph and Tim Short. Appreciate you joining us. Hope you have a great week ahead of you. Hope you stay safe out there. Ralph, appreciate the time, appreciate the conversation this week. But as we wrap up here, I want to leave you with the final word.
Well, what I would say, Chris, I hope everybody had a great 4th and enjoyed themselves. Mm-hmm. And I would say the best thing that you can do is take a little bit of time for yourself these days. Understand where you want to be. Give us a call. If you're kind of uncomfortable where you are as far as your financial advisor, give us a call. What's it going to take just to sit down and have a cup of coffee with us and enjoy some of the things that we have to talk about, because it is a very personal situation. Everybody is a little bit different, and let's have a conversation. Give us a call. Thank you, Chris.
All content is for information purposes only. It is not intended to provide any tax or legal advice or provide the basis for any financial decision, nor is it intended to be a projection of current or future performance or indication or future results. Opinions expressed herein are solely those of Welcome Home Financial Partners and Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC. The information contained in this material has been derived from sources believed to be reliable, but is not guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness and does not purport to a complete analysis of the materials discussed. All information and ideas should be discussed in detail with your individual advisor prior to the implementation. Each individual investor's situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstance. Advisor services are offered by Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of Virginia. Being registered as an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skill or training. Insurance products and services are offered through WPI Holding, Virginia Insurance License Number 138509, an affiliated company. The information contained herein should in no way be construed or interpreted as a solicitation to sell or offer to sell advisory services to any residents of any state other than the state of Virginia or where otherwise legally permitted. Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC, and Welcome Home Financial Partners are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any government agency.